Okay,
Welcome.
good morning.
I noticed that you've added some red.
Yes, we have added some red to the website.
So is it true that it's better red than dead?
In this case, yes.
Okay. So just saying here, you chose red. Why didn't you choose blue?
Well, because red is a color that indicates potential problems, indicates something that you need to pay attention to. And the whole point here is that the red of our logo also appears in the red of the problem that our hacker is having there in the left side window. And in the right side, that problem has become an opportunity where suddenly the company is making money from it.
So you think that red bar should be blue or green or something that says, hey, we turned the problem into money?
That would be a better color for that if it was reality, but this is a narrative that we're offering. And so the idea here is the red flows through from our logo to the solution to the problem.
Okay, but I think if red is the bad thing. All right, so I think you should have a blue. I think the OSG logo should have red, but the words, OIA security growth maybe should be in blue. And then you can have the red on that low bar at the left and the blue or the green on the bar at the right. So it maps into somehow we turn your problems into profits.
Oh, I like that line a lot. Maybe we'll use that. And yeah, that would make sense. Maybe we'll do an A/B test on those and see which ones convert better.
Okay, A/B testing. We've used this word a lot. We haven't told people what A/B testing is.
Right.
Even though they know what it is, tell them.
Okay, so A/B testing, well, there's several types, but the general idea is that you show some people one website or one page or one thing, and you show other people another one, and then you look at the responses and see which ones perform better, see which one performs better.
Yeah, the A or the B, right?
A or the B. Now,
yeah. So why not have A through Z?
Well, you quickly get into choice overwhelm. Once you give humans beyond about 7 things to choose from, they very quickly go to the place where they can't choose anything.
But that's actually very interesting as well. But hang on, they only see one of the choices. You can test as many as you want, right?
That's true. That's true. My preference is to keep these kind of tests as simple as possible.
So you're trying to do that scientific thing of differentiating between specific differences between them to find out which one works better, as opposed to having 47 variations and have a big statistical problem. And also the law of large numbers is required for understanding that when you have lots of variations, but it takes relatively small number of samples to reliably differentiate between 2 options. Is that right?
That's correct. And the other thing about A/B testing that, which is funny because a lot of the A/B testing companies don't do this or maybe don't realize it, I'm not sure, is that you have to measure not just the positives, you have to measure the negatives too. Some people will disprefer A or will not prefer A and specifically won't like it. But if you don't measure that, then all you get is this one's better than that one, and you don't know that that one is maybe driving less traffic to the conversion page.
And then there's the issue of the excluded middle, but we'll get to that. Moving right. So what was the actual topic we were going to discuss today?
Well, you wanted to discuss something more left brain this week.
What was that?
I don't know. You didn't tell me.
Oh, well, okay. We'll have to discuss that. Well, so as everybody by now knows, I tend to be systematic and going through lots of possibilities and making sure I have things properly rigged.
Yes.
And whereas I think there's a great need for creativity when you need it, I think there's a great need to stop being creative when you don't need it.
An old boss of mine used to say, sometimes you have to shoot the engineers and ship the product.
Okay. I don't know if I would quite go to that level of homicide. But so actually we have that problem with one of our clients right now. Now that you brought it up, it's not quite that problem, but so I start these analytical processes where we have the go-to-market and the financial analysis and the sales sieve and all these things, and it ends up being a 400 tab spreadsheet with 30,000 different numbers, none of which they understand.
Right.
And so my preference is to be analytical, but with simple things that a normal person can understand. Mm-hmm. And that's why we've discussed this many times, but probably these folks listening haven't heard it. The first question I ask about any business is who sells what to whom and how. Mm-hmm. And if they can't answer that question, then we're in the they really, really, really need help. And if they start to answer the question, and then there are different indicators, right? Mm-hmm. So usually what they have is they'll say something like, we sell food to people. And so I didn't mention the how part, right? But or worse yet, they'll okay. So they're missing fundamentals, right? The first fundamental is when you're selling something to somebody, by definition, that is my definition for my purposes, is whoever that is you're selling something to has to pay you.
Yes. Otherwise, it's not really selling, is it?
Well, I don't know. They have a three-sided market, right? And they're saying, well, we give away this thing to those people. And I'm like, great, you're not selling them. Who pays you? Right? Well, it's paid by these advertisers. All right, so when you sell, you're selling to the advertisers, right?
Yes.
So who, and then the who is we. No, not we. Who? So the specific person. Is it inside sales? Is it outside sales? Is it through a channel partner? Who is this? What are their qualifications? What are their characteristics? Who sells what? Advertisement in that example. Okay. To whom? Well, to the advertisers. Well, right. I understood that, but specifically, what type of advertiser? You have a cybersecurity site, and it's and there are lots of these sites out there, including I have my own sites that are free, and they give you access to valuable information, really worthwhile stuff, and they try to monetize that by advertising. So when I say to whom, I want to know, well, who are you advertising to your competitors? I mean, are you selling to your competitors whose advertisement will take people away from your site? Is it anybody on Google that wants to have, advertise there based on some search terms? What's the methodology here? Mm-hmm. And very often, those advertisements take people away from the purpose of the site. And so, somehow engagement is an issue here. Not that I'm a big fan of engagement as a measure, but so then, all right, so once you've figured out who, that is, what are the characteristics of, and who are those customers? It's the whom, not the who. Who sells what to whom?
Whom, yes.
Then there's the how. So what are you going to do? Are you going to go knock on their doors? Are you sending them emails? So we're currently engaged in an email campaign.
Yes.
And we've sent out at least 100 emails, maybe a couple hundred. Yeah. And we've gotten 0 responses. Is it actually 0?
Not quite. There's been a few responses, but it's close to 0.
Yeah, but hang on, those few responses, were they remove me from the list responses? Those would be the negative ones you talked about, right?
So far, no. Actually, nobody has declined to receive any more emails.
Right. So problem one, of course, is if you're sending out emails, you got spam filters.
Right.
And I, one of the things I most hate is having my actual emails I actually send to people marked as spam.
Yes.
So and so there are different ways you can send an individual email to each, but that has some increased probability of spam. So you can send everybody a CC, but then you have 20 people CC'd, mm-hmm. and they're all in a long list. And if somebody doesn't reply all, it just gets a mangled mess. And so for business purposes, I usually use BCC. So I sent out an email just a couple of days ago, and had maybe 10, 15 people BCC'd on it. And I always, when I do that, I send it to myself on another email address. So I send it from FC at this to FC at that or whatever. And I look for it to come in, and so it didn't show up. And I'm looking, well, what happened to that email? So I checked my junk filter, and my email to myself, BCCing some other people, was in my spam box. And I'm like, and these are both, they're domains that I own, right? I mean, it's like, I didn't mark it as spam. Somehow the spam gods decided that that was spam. So I figured maybe nobody got it. Okay, so I check it out. Did nobody get it? And the answer is no. Some people got it because they actually responded, and in fact, in 2 of those cases, paid me something. So this whole, the reliability of delivery and all that with email is potentially problematic as well, of course. But in any case, no negative responses, 2 out of 100, something like that. If you get 2% responses, that's not terrible, right?
No, that's a good number these days.
To your first email.
Yeah.
Because it takes 9 of them. Yes.
Well, it takes 27 to get 9 to get somebody to do something.
Yeah. So I figure I'm doing really great because I get much more than that probability of action in many fewer emails that I send out.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a statistic for cold emails, Fred. Don't forget that.
Well, my emails tend to be pretty hot, I must admit.
I agree.
They're hot stuff, man. My emails, they have flames in them.
And
flames are bad things. So people on the internet today have different words about everything than they had, 20 years ago or so, when the internet was much younger.
Yes.
40 years ago when the ARPANET was much younger.
Yes.
And, signatures, I was on a mailing list in the early 1980s. And I had a signature line that had my name and the name of my company on the next line. And I got, huge complaints about how I was consuming all this bandwidth by having the company name and having my company name and my phone number. That was too commercial.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, today, if it's less than 47, an email from a law office has a, 17-volume add-on at the end that says, we're not tax advice, we don't give this advice, this is not legal advice, it's confidential. GDPR says that if you push this button, everything will turn green and explode, and so forth. I don't know, it gets a little bit crazy. So, all right, so I got off track there, but the logical realm, so that's the first question I asked, right? Who sells what to whom and how?
Right.
And then, so what's the next question I ask? And it's, who does what to fulfill and how, right?
Right.
So, because, all right, you're selling something, so what do you have to do if they say yes? Oops, wait, we forgot that part. So you'd be surprised how many people don't get that, right? Well, what do you mean who? It's magic. The internet does it. No. No. Yes, I have a website. Yes, there's a web service provider that does something. Oh, well, you didn't mention them. Right? What if they go out of business? And what if they don't like you? What if they get a distributed denial of service against your site, shut you down? But also the fact that you actually have expenses associated, like with creating it, operating it, maintaining it, getting valuable statistics from it, which brings me to the question, Adam, what valuable statistics do we have from the OSG site?
What valuable statistics do we have on the OSG site? Well, we know it's drawing a small amount of traffic around what we predicted going in, which is at the moment running about a few hundred visitors per month. Most of those uniques. And so far, we've got a low conversion rate of about 0.7%, I believe it is.
Converting to what?
Pardon me?
Converting to what?
Converting as in filling out the form on the contact page.
Fantastic. Filling out a form. I thought when you talk about conversion, I thought they were changing religions or more complicated yet, political parties, which is.
Either of those would be well beyond our pay grade.
Or capacity, right? Okay.
Or capacity, exactly.
So there's a fulfillment process, of course. And then the next question after that is when I finally get to, how much does it cost and what's left? So those are my top 3 questions. But those are like the simplest top level questions before anything else. But then if I'm going to serve a customer, and I face this on what we used to call protection assessments, now we're called them pathfinders in a different business. And in this world, and this goes back to like 1970s when I did my first, security things for professionally, and much more strenuously in the 80s. But the first question I would always ask the company is, so, tell me what business you're in. What do you do? And the response is almost uniformly the tagline from their corporate literature. And I say, okay, let me try again. Without using any words from any corporate literature you've ever seen, what business are you in? What do you do? And so I do this, and then I ask myself, how many computers do you have? How many this do you have? How many that do you have? How much? And pretty soon they're getting a little bit unhappy, right? They're like, you're here for a firewall assessment. Why are you asking me what business I'm in? What does that possibly have to do with my firewall? To which I say, well, let's see, if you're in the nuclear weapons business, you probably have different requirements for a firewall than if you're, in the we sell shoelaces business, right? Because probably it's a different situation, right? You need to know context in order to make sense out of any business or what to do with it.
That's right.
So getting all that context information, there's lots of it, and so. That's sort of the next problem. And again, my approach is almost uniformly ask a lot of questions, get the answers, don't make decisions until you understand enough about the circumstance.
And what I have always found interesting, Fred, is that when you and I first got together, one of the things we discovered is that our initial processes for what we do for a cybersecurity audit or for a brand audit and a brand development process, we go through almost exactly the same type of discovery process. We're focusing on something a little bit different than you are, obviously, but we ask a lot of those same questions when we do a marketing campaign or build a brand for somebody. Is what do you do and how do you do it and how does it all work? We're not so interested necessarily in the metrics and what their net profit is at the end of the day, although that's important. But we do need to know all the rest of those kinds of information that you're gathering as just part of your security audit. And I always found that fascinating that you and I and the processes that we use come very close together, coming from very different parts of the business.
So now my left brain is going to come into play. It's not a security audit.
Okay.
We don't do audits. Audits are evaluations against a standard to determine whether and to what extent you meet that standard.
Okay.
And we help people find a path forward for their business. When we help grow companies, we help people find a path forward for their cybersecurity program if we're working in the cybersecurity arena. And in this particular circumstance, we're helping to find a path forward for improving their marketing and hopefully sales as well. Make more money, get more money. We're not so much concerned about the cost side of how they do the fulfillment, but we do need to know that, so that we don't, market in a way that won't produce what they need.
Right.
But it's the point is, it's the same. We're trying to find a path forward for the business, and whether it's the cybersecurity aspect of the business or the financial aspect of the business, or the marketing side of the business or whatever, you still need to understand the business.
Yes.
Because guess what? That's what it's about. Or for a government agency, it's not the business, it's the mission. But same point, right? You can't do it out of context.
Right, exactly.
So do people push back on you in the marketing side when you start asking them questions that they say, what the heck does that have to do with my advertisement or my whatever?
They do. And because I've been in marketing for so long, I have some strange philosophies. Like, I think customer service should really be a marketing function. People always object to that. But I think it's a really important brand point. It's a very important brand touch point. And how many times have you heard people complain about the customer service they get?
Right. So I should point out on the other side, so it's generally part of operations, right? And the reason it's part of operations, if it's a product business, it's maybe less an operations issue. You might have returns or something like that, but it's mostly like a help desk. But in a service business, especially a software as a service or some other internet-based or information-based business, then the service is almost always very tightly linked to the technology and to the operations.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why operations typically handles that aspect of service for that kind of company. But I completely agree with you that the service and support function should be at least tightly integrated with marketing.
Yeah.
For example, so that when they dial in, and the verbiage for the business is, "We're here to make you happy," and the way they answer the phone is, "What the hell do you want?" Probably it's a mismatch. All right, maybe that's an extreme, but it's not actually an unrealistic extreme, because I'm going to now describe to you how a longstanding friend of mine got fired from one of his early jobs as a service and support person at a newspaper.
Okay.
Chet, those of you that know Chet, you know Chet. Chet was there's he works for the newspaper, and they have an online capability, and so somebody dials into the online capability, and for context, this is in Nebraska, and they have twisters, or are they not hurricanes, or tornadoes, and big storms, and all these kinds of things, and lots of issues like that. So he gets this call in, and he says, "How can I help you?" I say, "Well, I can't access your website." "Okay, that's fine. Let's walk through it." So he starts walking through have you put in this URL? Yes. Have you done this? Yes. Have you, finally, about 15 minutes in, he's saying, "Can you tell me what you see on your screen?" He said, "Well, my screen is black." All right. So, another 3 minutes later, it turns out the power is out because there was a tornado strike. So their power is out. Meanwhile, this person is on their landline phone, which doesn't require any electricity because it all runs over the phone line, calling up because they can't access the website when the power is out. Well, at that point, he responded in a manner that was inconsistent with the general policy and conception of service and support at the newspaper. I believe it involved at least a few words that were, let's say, off color, and an increase in the volume of his voice, and the stress levels in his expression. And he hung up on the person. The person naturally called back and complained about the bad support for internet access when my power's off, right? So, just saying, you got to do better than that, but it's awful tough. And especially if you have these support lines, that's a tough business.
It is. It's a really tough business because there are people who really don't understand technology and still try and play with it and get themselves in all sorts of messes. It was amazing. I used to be customer support for my mom on her iPad, and she used to get it in the States. I have no idea how she did that.
Right. It's all expanded and flashing and talking to you in a foreign language. How do I even figure everything on the screen, everything it says in a foreign language? I have no idea of how to even get it to English so I can understand what the buttons mean.
Exactly. And one of my first jobs in business was as a reliability director at Plantronics. And so it was my job to break the headsets before they went out into market. And we found some of the most clever ways to break headsets we ever could. But what we learned is that as soon as you put something out on the market, people do stuff with it that you have no idea they're going to do. So,
well, you do know that a Plantronics headset is perfect as a Phillips head screwdriver when you have a very big screw and you don't have anything else with you.
Well, see, that's probably, we never thought about that.
So, obviously, that one's obvious.
Yes. But what wasn't obvious is that the German operators drank beer from Boda bags at 3 a.m. at that time, and they were screwing up the acoustic tubes of the headsets. That actually took us 3 months to figure out.
So those 4 gold-looking things that are inside that pencil holder, they seem to not work anymore.
What?
In my Plantronics headset here, these 4 gold-looking things inside the pencil holder that don't seem to be working right.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm not customer support for Plantronics anymore.
Well, that's your good fortune. Okay, so,
Yes, it is.
and of course, the coffee cup holder that used to come standard in every PC.
That's right.
All right. So now, unfortunately, we're at the end of our, supposedly 20-minute spot here.
Okay.
And we're trying not to exceed the time, and we've wasted another, 22 minutes or however much time and not provided any, so here's one of the things that people keep telling me is in any sort of a marketing thing or any sort of an information thing, there should always be a call to action. So what should, all right, you guys have heard all this now. So what's the call to action here? Do you need to go to security.oyagroup.com, or is there a phone number to call, or do you just look up and say, please help me market, and we'll call you right up because we're listening in on your device?
Well, you can go to this page right here, which is security.oyagroup.com/contact. And you can call us or you can email us and tell us your story, and we'll get back to you and be happy to talk about it.
Okay, so I got to say, that was weak. We need to improve our call to action. I think we need a tiny URL that anybody can remember.
Okay.
Or an easier to website. My goodness, like I have fs0.co, and a2e.co. We need like an OSG.co or something like that.
Well, next week we'll have a shorter URL for people, I promise.
Oh, fantastic. All right, great. All right, so hopefully they will, call us before then, but if not, we'll have to have another 23 podcasts or something before we start getting responses.
That's right. Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll talk to you next week.